The land tended upward the way Rand went, but fear lent his legs strength, and they ate ground in long strides, tearing his way through flowering bushes and tangles of wild rose, scattering petals, not caring if thorns ripped his clothes or even his flesh. Moiraine had stopped screaming. It seemed as if the shrieks had gone on forever, each one more throat-wrenching than the last, but he knew they had lasted only moments altogether. Moments before Aginor would be on his trail. He knew it would be him that Aginor followed. He had seen the certainty in the Forsaken's hollow eyes, in that last second before terror whipped his feet to run. The land grew ever steeper, but he scrambled on, pulling himself forward by handfuls of undergrowth, rocks and dirt and leaves, spilling down the slope from under his feet, finally crawling on hands and knees when the slant became too great. Ahead, above, it leveled out a little. Panting, he scrabbled his way the last few spans, got to his feet and stopped, wanting to howl aloud. 10 paces in front of him, the hilltop dropped away sharply. He knew what he would see before he reached it, but he took the steps anyway, each heavier than the one before, hoping there might be some track, a goat path, anything. At the edge, he looked down a sheer 100-foot drop, a stone wall as smooth as planed timber. There has to be some way. I'll go back and find a way around. Go back and... When he turned, Aginor was there, just reaching the crest. The Forsaken topped the hill without any difficulty, walking up the steep slope as if it were level ground. Deep sunken eyes burned at him from that drawn parchment face. Somehow it seemed less withered than before, more fleshed, as if Aginor had fed well on something. Those eyes were fixed on him, yet when Aginor spoke, it was almost to himself. Ba-Alzamon will give rewards beyond mortal dreaming for the one who brings you to Sheol Ghul. Yet my dreams have always been beyond those of other men, and I left mortality behind millennia ago. What difference if you serve the great Lord of the Dark alive or dead? None to the spread of the shadow. Why should I share power with you? Why should I bend knee to you? I who faced Luz Therin Telamon in the Hall of the Servants itself. I who threw my might against the Lord of the Morning and met him stroke for stroke. I think not. Rand's mouth dried like dust. His tongue felt as shriveled as Aginor. The edge of the precipice grated under his heels, stone falling away. He did not dare look back, but he heard the rocks bounding and rebounding from the sheer wall, just as his body would if he moved another inch. It was the first he knew that he had been backing up, away from the Forsaken. His skin crawled until he thought he must see it writhing if he looked, if he could only take his eyes off the Forsaken. There has to be some way to get away from him, some way to escape. There has to be, some way. Suddenly he felt something, saw it, though he knew it was not there to see. A glowing rope ran off from Aginor behind him, white like sunlight seen through the purest cloud, heavier than a blacksmith's arm, lighter than air, connecting the Forsaken to something distant, beyond knowing, something within the touch of Rand's hand. The rope pulsed, and with every throb Aginor grew stronger, more fully fleshed, a man as tall and strong as himself, a man harder than the warder, more deadly than the blight. Yet beside that shining cord, the Forsaken seemed almost not to exist. The cord was all. It hummed. It sang. It called Rand's soul. One bright finger strand lifted away, drifted, touched him, and he gasped. Light filled him, and heat that should have burned yet only warmed, as if it took the chill of the grave from his bones. The strand thickened. I have to get away. No, Aginor shouted. You shall not have it. It is mine. Rand did not move, and neither did the Forsaken, yet they fought as surely as if they grappled in the dust. Sweat beaded on Aginor's face, no longer withered, no longer old, that of a strong man in his prime. Rand pulsed with the beating in the cord, like the heartbeat of the world. It filled his being. Light filled his mind, till only a corner was left for what was himself. He wrapped the void around that nook, sheltered in emptiness. Away. Mine, Aginor cried. Mine. Warmth built in Rand, the warmth of the sun, the radiance of the sun, bursting, the awful radiance of the light. Away. Mine. Flame shot from Aginor's mouth, broke through his eyes like spears of fire, and he screamed. Away. And Rand was no longer on the hilltop. He quivered with the light that suffused him. His mind would not work. Light and heat blinded it. The light. In the midst of the void, the light blinded his mind, stunned him with awe. He stood in a broad mountain pass, surrounded by jagged black peaks like the teeth of the Dark One. It was real. He was there. He felt the rocks under his boots, the icy breeze on his face. Battle surrounded him, or the tail end of battle. Armored men on armored horses, shining steel dusty now, slashed and stabbed at snarling Trollocs wielding spiked axes and scythe-like swords. Some men fought afoot, their horses down, and barded horses galloped through the fight with empty saddles. Fades moved among them all, night-black cloaks hanging still, however their dark mounts galloped, and wherever their light-eating swords swung, men died. Sound beat at Rand, beat at him, and bounced from the strangeness that had him by the throat. The clash of steel against steel, the panting and grunting of men and Trollocs striving, the screams of men and Trollocs dying. Over the din, banners waved in dust-filled air, the Black Hawk of Fal Dara, the White Heart of Shi'enar, others, and Trolloc banners. In just the little space around him, he saw the horned skull of the Davol, the blood-red trident of the Kobal, the iron fist of the Daimon. Yet it was indeed the tail end of battle. A pausing, as humans and Trollocs alike fell back to regroup. None seemed to notice Rand as they paid a few last strokes and broke away, galloping or running in a stagger to the ends of the pass. Rand found himself facing the end of the pass, where the humans were reforming, pennants stirring beneath gleaming lancer points. Wounded men wavered in their saddles. Riderless horses reared and galloped. Plainly they could not stand another meeting, yet just as plainly they readied themselves for one final charge. Some of them saw him now. Men stood in their stirrups to point at him. Their shouts came to him as tiny piping. Staggering, he turned. The forces of the Dark One filled the other end of the pass, bristling black pikes and spear points, swelling up onto mountain slopes, made blacker still by the great mass of Trollocs that dwarfed the army of Shi'enar. Fades in hundreds rode across the front of the horde, the fierce, muzzled faces of Trollocs turning away in fear as they passed, huge bodies pulling back to make way. Overhead, Drugcar wheeled on leathery pinions, shrieks challenging the wind. Halfman saw him now too, pointed, and Dragcar spun and dove. 2, 3, 6 of them, crying shrilly as they plummeted toward him. He stared at them. Heat filled him, the burning heat of the touched sun. He could see the Dragcar clearly, soulless eyes in pale men's faces on winged bodies that had nothing of humanity about them. Terrible heat, crackling heat. From the clear sky lightning came, each bolt crisp and sharp, searing his eyes, each bolt striking a winged black shape. Hunting cries became shrieks of death, and charred forms fell to lead the sky clean again. The heat, the terrible heat of the light. He fell to his knees. He thought he could hear his tears sizzling on his cheeks. No! He clutched at tufts of wiry grass for some hold on reality. The grass burst in flame. Please, no! The wind rose with his voice, howled with his voice, roared with his voice down the pass, whipping the flames to a wall of fire that sped away from him and toward the Trolloc host, faster than a horse could run. Fire burned into the Trollocs, and the mountains trembled with their screams, screams almost as loud as the wind and his voice. It has to end. He beat at the ground with his fist, and the earth tolled like a gong. He bruised his hands on stony soil, and the earth trembled. Ripples ran through the ground ahead of him in ever-rising waves, waves of dirt and rock towering over Trollocs and Fades, breaking over them as the mountains shattered under their hooved feet. A boiling mass of flesh and rubble churned across the Trolloc army. What was left standing was still a mighty host, but now no more than twice the human army in numbers, and milling in fright and confusion. The wind died. The screams died. The earth was still. Dust and smoke swirled back down the pass to surround him. The light blind you, Ba'alzamon. This has to end? IT is not here. It was not Ram's thought, making his skull vibrate. I will take no part. Only the chosen one can do what must be done, if he will. Where? He did not want to say it, but he could not stop himself. Where? The haze surrounding him parted, leaving a dome of clear, clean air, 10 spans high, walled by billowing smoke and dust. Steps rose before him, each standing alone and unsupported, stretching up into the murk that obscured the sun. Not here. Through the mist, as from the far end of the earth, came a cry. The light wills it. The ground rumbled with the thunder of hooves as the forces of humankind launched their last charge. Within the void, his mind knew a moment of panic. The charging horsemen could not see him in the dust. Their charge would trample right over him. The greater part of him ignored the shaking ground as a petty thing beneath concern. Dull anger driving his feet, he mounted the first steps. It has to be ended. Darkness surrounded him, the utter blackness of total nothing. The steps were still there, hanging in the black, under his feet and ahead. When he looked back, those behind were gone, faded away to nothing, into the nothingness around him. But the cord was yet there, stretching behind him, the glowing line dwindling and vanishing into the distance. It was not so thick as before, but it still pulsed, pumping strength into him, pumping life, filling him with the light. He climbed. It seemed forever that he climbed, forever and minutes. Time stood still in nothingness. Time ran faster. He climbed until suddenly a door stood before him, its surface rough and splintered and old, a door well remembered. He touched it, and it burst to fragments. While they still fell, he stepped through, bits of shattered wood falling from his shoulders. The chamber, too, was as he remembered, the mad, striated sky beyond the balcony, the melted walls, the polished table, the terrible fireplace with its roaring, heatless flames. Some of those faces that made the fireplace, writhing in torment, shrieking in silence, tugged at his memory as if he knew them. But he held the void close, floated within himself in emptiness. He was alone. When he looked at the mirror on the wall, his face was there, as clear as if it was him. There is calm in the void. Yes, Ba'alzamon said from in front of the fireplace. I thought Aginor's greed would overcome him, but it makes no difference in the end. A long search, but ended now. You are here, and I know you. In the midst of the light the void drifted, and in the midst of the void floated Rand. He reached for the soil of his home, and felt hard rock, unyielding and dry, stone without pity, where only the strong could survive, only those as hard as the mountains. I am tired of running. He could not believe his voice was so calm. Tired of you threatening my friends. I will run no more. Ba'alzamon had a cord too, he saw. A black cord, thicker by far than his own, so wide it should have dwarfed the human body, yet dwarfed by Ba'alzamon instead. Each pulse along that black vein ate light. You think it makes any difference whether you run or stay? The flames of Ba'alzamon's mouth laughed. The faces in the hearth wept at their master's mirth. You have fled from me many times, and each time I run you down and make you eat your pride with snivelling tears for spice. Many times you have stood and fought, then grovelled in defeat, begging mercy. You have this choice, worm, and this choice only. Kneel at my feet and serve me well, and I will give you power above thrones, or be Tar Valon's puppet fool and scream while you are ground into the dust of time. Rand shifted, glancing back through the door as if seeking a way to escape. Let the Dark One think that. Beyond the doorway was still the black of nothing, split by the shining thread that ran from his body. And out there, Ba'alzamon's heavier cord ran as well, so black that it stood out in the dark, as if against snow. The two cords beat like heart veins in countertime against each other, the light barely resisting the waves of dark. There are other choices, Rand said. The wheel weaves the pattern, not you. Every trap you laid for me, I have escaped. I've escaped your Fades and Trollocs, escaped your dark friends. I tracked you here and destroyed your army on the way. You do not weave the pattern. Ba'alzamon's eyes roared like two furnaces. His lips did not move, but Rand thought he heard a curse screamed at Aginor. Then the fires died, and that ordinary human face smiled at him in a way that chilled even through the warmth of the light. Other armies can be raised. Fool, armies you have not dreamed of will yet come. And you tracked me. You slug under a rock. Track me? I began the setting of your path, the day you were born, a path to lead you to your grave, or here, I'll allow to flee and one to live, to speak the words that would echo down the years. Jane Fairstrider, a hero, he twisted the word to a sneer, whom I painted like a fool and sent to the Ogier thinking he was free of me. the black Aja, wriggling like worms on their bellies across the world to search you out. I pull the strings, and the Amelin seat dances and thinks she controls events. The void trembled. Hastily, Rand firmed it again. He knows it all. He could have done. It could be the way he says. The light warmed the void. Doubt cried out and was stilled till only the seed remained. He struggled, not knowing whether he wanted to bury the seed or make it grow. The void steadied, smaller than before, and he floated in calm. But Alzamon seemed to notice nothing. It matters little if I have you alive or dead, except to you, and to what power you might have. You will serve me, or your soul will, but I would rather have you kneel to me alive than dead. A single fist of Trollocs sent to your village when I could have sent 1,000. One dark friend to face you where 100 could come on you asleep. And you, fool, you don't even know them all, neither those ahead, nor those behind, nor those by your side. You are mine, have always been mine, my dog on a leash, and I brought you here to kneel to your master or die and let your soul kneel. I deny you. You have no power over me, and I will not kneel to you, alive or dead. Look, Alzamon said. Look. Unwilling, Rand yet turned his head. Egwene stood there, and Nynaeve, pale and frightened, with flowers in their hair. And another woman, little older than the wisdom, grey-eyed and beautiful, clothed in a two-rivers dress, bright blossoms embroidered round the neck. "Mother," he breathed, and she smiled, a hopeless smile, his mother's smile. "No, my mother is dead, and the other two are safe away from here. I deny you." Egwene and Nynaeve blurred, became wafting mist, dissipated. Cariel Thor still stood there, her eyes big with fear. "She, at least," Baalzamon said, "is mine to do with as I will." Rand shook his head. "I deny you." He had to force the words out. "She is dead, and safe from you in the light." His mother's lips trembled. Tears trickled down her cheeks, each one burned him like acid. "The Lord of the Grave is stronger than he once was, my son," she said. "His reach is longer. The Father of Lies has a honeyed tongue for unwary souls. My son, my only darling son, I would spare you if I could, but he is my master now, his whim, the law of my existence. I can but obey him and grovel for his favor. Only you can free me. Please, my son, please help me. Help me, help me, please." The wail ripped out of her as barefaced fades, pale and eyeless, closed round. Her clothes ripped away in their bloodless hands, hands that wielded pincers and clamps, and things that stung and burned and whipped against her naked flesh. Her scream would not end. Rand's scream echoed hers. The void boiled in his mind. His sword was in his hand, not the heron-marked blade, but a blade of light, a blade of the light. Even as he raised it, a fiery white bolt shot from the point, as if the blade itself had reached out. It touched the nearest fade, and blinding canescence filled the chamber, shining through the half-men like a candle through paper, burning through them, blinding his eyes to the scene. From the midst of the brilliance he heard a whisper. "Thank you, my son. The light. The blessed light." The flash faded, and he was alone in the chamber with Baalzamon. Baalzamon's eyes burned like the pit of doom, but he shied back from the sword as if it truly were the light itself. "Fool. You will destroy yourself. You cannot wield it so, not yet. Not until I teach you." "It is ended," Rand said, and he swung the sword at Baalzamon's black cord. Baalzamon screamed as the sword fell, screamed till the stone walls trembled, and the endless howl redoubled as the blade of light severed the cord. The cut ends rebounded apart as if they had been under tension. The end, stretching into the nothingness outside, began to shrivel as it sprang away. The other whipped back into Baalzamon, hurling him against the fireplace. There was silent laughter in the soundless shrieks of the tortured faces. The walls shivered and cracked, the floor heaved, and chunks of stone crashed to the floor from the ceiling. As all broke apart around him, Rand pointed the sword at Baalzamon's heart. "It is ended." Light lanced from the blade, coruscating in a shower of fiery sparks like droplets of molten white metal. Wailing, Baalzamon threw up his arms in a vain effort to shield himself. Flames shrieked in his eyes, joining with other flames as the stone ignited, the stone of the cracking walls, the stone of the pitching floor, the stone showering from the ceiling. Rand felt the bright thread attached to him thinning, till only the glow itself remained. But he strained harder, not knowing what he did or how, only that this had to be ended. It has to be ended. Fire filled the chamber, a solid flame. He could see Ba-al-Zaman withering like a leaf, hear him howling, feel the shrieks grating on his bones. The flame became pure white light, brighter than the sun. Then the last flicker of the thread was gone, and he was falling through endless black and Ba-al-Zaman's fading howl. Something struck him with tremendous force, turning him to jelly, and the jelly shook and screamed from the fire raging inside, the hungry cold burning without end. He became aware of the sun, first, moving across a cloudless sky, filling his unblinking eyes. It seemed to go by fits and starts, standing still for days, then darting ahead in a streak of light, jerking toward the far horizon, day falling with it. Light. That should mean something. Thought was a new thing. I can think. I means me. Pain came next, the memory of raging fever, the bruises where shaking chills had thrown him around like a rag doll. And a stink. A greasy, burned smell filling his nostrils and his head. With aching muscles, he heaved himself over, pushed up to hands and knees. Uncomprehending, he stared at the oily ashes in which he had been lying, ashes scattered and smeared over the stone of the hilltop. Bits of dark green cloth lay mixed in the char, edge-blackened scraps that had escaped the flames. Aginor. His stomach heaved and twisted. Trying to brush black streaks of ash from his clothes, he lurched away from the remains of the Forsaken. His hands flapped feebly, not making much headway. He tried to use both hands and fell forward. A sheer drop loomed under his face, a smooth rock wall spinning in his eyes, depth pulling him. His head swam, and he vomited over the edge of the cliff. Trembling, he crawled backwards on his belly until there was solid stone under his eyes, then flopped over onto his back, panting for breath. With an effort he fumbled his sword from its scabbard. Only a few ashes remained from the red cloth. His hand shook when he held it up in front of his face. It took both hands. It was a heron mark blade. Heron mark? Yes, Tam, my father, but only steel for that. He needed 3 wavering tries to sheathe it again. It had been something else, or there was another sword. My name, he said after a while, is Rand Thor. More memory crashed back into his head like a lead ball, and he groaned. The Dark One, he whispered to himself. The Dark One is dead. There was no more need for caution. Shaitan is dead. The world seemed to lurch. He shook in silent mirth until tears poured from his eyes. Shaitan is dead, he laughed at the sky. Other memories. Egwene. That name meant something important. Painfully he got to his feet, wavering like a willow in a high wind, and staggered past Aginor's ashes without looking at them. Not important anymore. He fell more than climbed down that first steep part of the slope, tumbling and sliding from bush to bush. By the time he reached more level ground, his bruises ached twice as much, but he found strength enough to stand, barely. Egwene. He broke into a shambling run. Leaves and flower petals showered around him as he blundered through the undergrowth. Have to find her. Who is she? His arms and legs seemed to flail about more like long blades of grass than go as he wanted them to. Tottering, he fell against a tree, slamming against the trunk so hard that he grunted. Foliage rained on his head while he pressed his face to the rough bark, touching to keep from falling. Egwene. He pushed himself away from the tree and hurried on. Almost immediately he tilted again, falling, but he forced his legs to work faster, to run into the fall, so that he was staggering along at a good clip, all the while one step from falling flat on his face. Moving made his legs begin to obey him more. Slowly he found himself running upright, arms pumping, long legs pulling him down the slope in leaps. He bounded into the clearing, half filled now by the great oak marking the green man's grave. There was the white stone arch marked with the ancient symbol of the Sedai, and the blackened, gaping pit where fire and wind had tried to trap Aginor and failed. Egwene. Egwene, where are you? A pretty girl looked up with big eyes from where she knelt beneath the spreading branches, flowers in her hair, and brown oak leaves. She was slender and young and frightened. Yes, that's who she is. Of course. Egwene, thank the light, you're all right. There were 2 other women with her, one with haunted eyes and a long braid, still decorated with a few white morning stars. The other lay outstretched, her head pillowed on folded cloaks, her own sky-blue cloak not quite hiding her tattered dress. Charred spots and tears in the rich cloth showed, and her face was pale, but her eyes were open. Moiraine. Yes, the Sedai, and the wisdom Nynaeve. All three women looked at him, unblinking and intent. You are all right, aren't you, Egwene? He didn't harm you. He could walk without stumbling now. The sight of her made him feel like dancing, bruises and all, but it still felt good to drop down cross-legged beside them. I never even saw him after you pushed. Her eyes were uncertain on his face. What about you, Rand? I'm fine, he laughed. He touched her cheek and wondered if he had imagined a slight pulling away. A little rest, and I'll be new maid. Nynaeve? Moiraine Sedai? The names felt new in his mouth. The wisdom's eyes were old, ancient in her young face, but she shook her head. A little bruised, she said, still watching him. Moiraine is the only, Gully, the only one of us who was really hurt. I suffered more injury to my pride than anything else, the Aes Sedai said irritably, plucking at her cloak blanket. She looked as if she had been a long time ill or hard used, but despite the dark circles under them, her eyes were sharp and full of power. Aginor was surprised and angry that I held him as long as I did, but fortunately he had no time to spare for me. I'm surprised myself that I held him so long. In the Age of Legends, Aginor was close behind the Kinslayer and Ishamael in power. The Dark One and all the Forsaken, Egwene quoted in a faint, unsteady voice, are bound in Sheol Ghul, bound by the Creator. Gully. She drew a shuddering breath. Aginor and Balthamel must have been trapped near the surface. Moiraine sounded as if she had already explained this, impatient at doing so again. The patch on the Dark One's prison weakened enough to free them. Let us be thankful no more of the Forsaken were freed. If they had been, we would have seen them. It doesn't matter, Rand said. Aginor and Balthamel are dead, and so is Shai. The Dark One, the Aes Sedai, cut him off. Ill or not, her voice was firm, and her dark eyes commanding. Best we still call him the Dark One, or Ba'alzamon at least. He shrugged. As you wish, but he's dead. The Dark One's dead. I killed him. I burned him with Gully. The rest of memory flooded back then, leaving his mouth hanging open. The one power. I wielded the one power. No man can. Gully. He licked lips that were suddenly dry. A gust of wind swirled fallen and falling leaves around them, but it was no colder than his heart. They were looking at him, the three of them, watching, not even blinking. He reached out to Egwene, and there was no imagination in her drawing back this time. Egwene? She turned her face away, and he let his hand drop. Abruptly, she flung her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. I'm sorry, Rand. I'm sorry. I don't care. Truly, I don't. Her shoulders shook. He thought she was crying. Awkwardly patting her hair, he looked at the other two women over the top of her head. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills, Nynaeve said slowly, but you are still Rand or Thor of Eamon's Field. But the light help me, the light help us all. You are too dangerous, Rand. He flinched from the wisdom's eyes, sad, regretting, and already accepting loss. What happened? Moiraine said. Tell me everything, and with her eyes on him, compelling, he did. He wanted to turn away, to make it short, leave things out, but the Aes Sedai's eyes drew everything from him. Tears ran down his face when he came to Kari all Thor. His mother, he emphasized that. He had my mother. My mother. There was sympathy and pain on Nynaeve's face, but the Aes Sedai's eyes drove him on, to the Sword of Light, to severing the black cord, and the flames consuming Ba'alzamon. Egwene's arms tightened around him, as if she would pull him back from what had happened. But it wasn't me, he finished. The light. Gully, pulled me along. It wasn't really me. Doesn't that make any difference? I had suspicions from the first, Moiraine said. Suspicions are not proof, though. After I gave you the token, the coin, and made that bonding, you should have been willing to fall in with whatever I wanted, but you resisted, questioned. That told me something, but not enough. Manetheren blood was always stubborn, and more so after Aemon died, and Eldrin's heart was shattered. Then there was Bella. Bella, he said. Nothing makes any difference. The Aes Sedai nodded. At Watch Hill, Bella had no need of me to cleanse her of tiredness. Someone had already done it. She could have outrun Mandab that night. I should have thought of who Bella carried. With Trollocs on our heels, a Drudcar overhead, and a Halfman the Light alone knew how you must have feared that Egwene would be left behind. You needed something more than you had ever needed anything before in your life, and you reached out to the one thing that could give it to you. Sighed in. He shivered. He felt so cold his fingers hurt. If I never do it again, if I never touch it again, I won't. Glee, glee. He could not say it. Go mad. Turn the land and people around him to madness. Die, rotting while he still lived. Perhaps, Moiraine said, it would be much easier if there was someone to teach you, but it might be done with a supreme effort of will. You can teach me. Surely you. He stopped when the Aes Sedai shook her head. Can a cat teach a dog to climb trees, Rand? Can a fish teach a bird to swim? I know Sedar, but I can teach you nothing of Sedin. Those who could are 3,000 years dead. Perhaps you are stubborn enough, though. Perhaps your will is strong enough. Egwene straightened, wiping reddened eyes with the back of her hand. She looked as if she wanted to say something, but when she opened her mouth, nothing came out. At least she isn't pulling away. At least she can look at me without screaming. The others, he said. Lan took them into the cavern, Nynaeve said. The eye is gone, but there's something in the middle of the pool, a crystal column and steps to reach it. Mat and Perrin wanted to look for you first. Loyal did too, but Moiraine said, Glee, Glee. She glanced at the Aes Sedai, troubled. Moiraine returned her look calmly. She said we mustn't disturb you while you were. Glee, Glee. His throat constricted until he could hardly breathe. Will they turn their faces the way Egwene did? Will they scream and run away like I'm afraid? Moiraine spoke as if she did not notice the blood draining from his face. There was a vast amount of the one power in the eye. Even in the Age of Legends, few could have channeled so much unaided without being destroyed. Very few, you told them, he said hoarsely. If everybody knows. Glee, Glee. Only Lan, Moiraine said gently. He must know, and Nynaeve and Egwene, for what they are and what they will become. The others have no need yet. Why not? The rasp in his throat made his voice harsh. You will be wanting to gentle me, won't you? Isn't that what Aes Sedai do to men who can wield the power? Change them so they can't. Make them safe? Tom said, men who have been gentled die because they stop wanting to live. Why aren't you talking about taking me to Tar Valon to be gentled? You are Tavera, Moiraine replied. Perhaps the pattern has not finished with you. Rand sat up straight. In the dreams, Baal-Zamon said Tar Valon and the Amelin seat would try to use me. He named names, and I remember them now. Rowlin Darksbane and Gwaia Amalasan. Urian Stonebow. Davian. Logain. The last was the hardest of all to say. Nynaeve went pale and Egwene gasped, but he pressed on angrily. Everyone a false dragon. Don't try to deny it. Well, I won't be used. I am not a tool you can throw on the midden heap when it's worn out. A tool made for a purpose is not demeaned by being used for that purpose. Moraine's voice was as harsh as his own. But a man who believes the father of lies demeans himself. You say you will not be used, and then you let the Dark One set your path, like a hound sent after a rabbit by his master. His fists clenched, and he turned his head away. It was too close to the things Baal-Zamon had said. I am no one's hound. Do you hear me? No one's. Loyal and the others appeared in the arch, and Ram scrambled to his feet, looking at Moiraine. They will not know, the Aes Sedai said, until the pattern makes it so. Then his friends were coming close. Lan led the way, looking as hard as ever, but still somewhat the worse for wear. He had one of Nynaeve's bandages around his temples and a stiff-backed way of walking. Behind him, Loyal carried a large gold chest, ornately worked and chased with silver. No one but an Ogier could have lifted it unaided. Perrin had his arms wrapped around a big bundle of folded white cloth, and Mat was cupping what appeared to be fragments of pottery in his two hands. So, you're alive after all, Mat laughed. His face darkened, and he jerked his head at Moiraine. She wouldn't let us look for you, said we had to find out what the eye was hiding. I'd have gone anyway, but Nynaeve and Egwene sided with her and almost threw me through the arch. "You're here now," Perrin said, "and not too badly beaten about by the look of you." His eyes did not glow, but the irises were all yellow now. "That's the important thing. You're here, and we're done with what we came for, whatever it was. Moiraine Sedai says we're done, and we can go. Home, Rand. The light burned me, but I want to go home." "Good to see you alive, sheepherder," Lan said gruffly. "I see you hung onto your sword. Maybe you'll learn to use it now." Rand felt a sudden burst of affection for the warder. Lan knew, but on the surface at least, nothing had changed. He thought that perhaps for Lan, nothing had changed inside either. "I must say," Loyal said, setting the chest down, "that traveling with Ta'Veren has turned out to be even more interesting than I expected." His ears twitched violently. "If it becomes any more interesting, I will go back to Stitting Shangtai immediately, confess everything to Elder Haman, and never leave my books again." Suddenly, the Ogier grinned, that wide mouth splitting his face in two. "It is so good to see you, Randall Thor. The warder is the only one of these three who cares much at all for books, and he won't talk. What happened to you? We all ran off and hid in the woods until Moiraine Sedai sent Lan to find us, but she would not let us look for you. Why were you gone so long, Rand?" "I ran and ran," he said slowly, "until I fell down a hill and hit my head on a rock. I think I hit every rock on the way down. That should explain his bruises." He tried to watch the Aes Sedai and Nynaeve and Egwene too, but their faces never changed. "When I came to, I was lost, and finally I stumbled back here. I think Aginor is dead, burned. I found some ashes and pieces of his cloak." The lies sounded hollow in his ears. He could not understand why they did not laugh with scorn and demand the truth, but his friends nodded, accepting, and made sympathetic sounds as they gathered around the Aes Sedai to show her what they had found. "Help me up," Moiraine said. Nynaeve and Egwene lifted her until she was sitting. They had to support her even then. "How could these things be inside the eye?" Mat asked, "without being destroyed like that rock?" "They were not put there to be destroyed," the Aes Sedai said curtly, and frowned away their questions while she took the pottery fragments, black and white and shiny, from Mat. They seemed like rubble to Rand, but she fitted them together deftly on the ground beside her, making a perfect circle the size of a man's hand. The ancient symbol of the Aes Sedai, the flame of Tar Valon, joined with the dragon's fang, black siding white. For a moment, Moiraine only looked at it, her face unreadable. Then she took the knife from her belt and handed it to Lan, nodding to the circle. The warder separated out the largest piece, then raised the knife high and brought it down with all his might. A spark flew, the fragment leaped with the force of the blow, and the blade snapped with a sharp crack. He examined the stump left attached to the hilt, then tossed it aside. "The best steel from Tyr," he said dryly. Mat snatched the fragment up and grunted, then showed it around. There was no mark on it. "Quendila," Moiraine said. "Heartstone. No one has been able to make it since the Age of Legends, and even then it was made only for the greatest purpose. Once made, nothing can break it. Not the one power itself wielded by the greatest Aes Sedai who ever lived, aided by the most powerful sa'angreal ever made. Any power directed against Heartstone only makes it stronger." "Then how?" Gully. Mat's gesture with the piece he held took in the other bits on the ground. "This was one of the 7 seals on the Dark One's prison," Moiraine said. Mat dropped the piece, as if it had become white-hot. For a moment Perrin's eyes seemed to glow again. The Aes Sedai calmly began gathering the fragments. "It doesn't matter anymore," Rand said. His friends looked at him oddly, and he wished he had kept his mouth shut. "Of course," Moiraine replied, but she carefully put all the pieces into her pouch. "Bring me the chest." Loyal lifted it closer. The flattened cube of gold and silver appeared to be solid, but the Aes Sedai's fingers felt across the intricate work, pressing, and with a sudden click, a top flung back as if on springs. A curled gold horn nestled within. Despite its gleam, it seemed plain beside the chest that held it. The only markings were a line of silver script inlaid around the mouth of the bell. Moiraine lifted the horn out as if lifting a babe. "This must be carried to Ilion," she said softly. "Ilion," Perrin growled. "That's almost to the Sea of Storms, nearly as far south of home as we are north now." "Is it?" Gully. Loyal stopped to catch his breath. Can it be? Gully, Gully. You can read the old tongue? Moiraine asked, and when he nodded, she handed him the horn. The Ogier took it as gently as she had, delicately tracing the script with one broad finger. His eyes went wider and wider, and his ears stood up straight. Tia mi avan moridin isanda vadin, he whispered. The grave is no bar to my call, the Horn of Valere. For once, the warder appeared truly shaken. There was a touch of awe in his voice. At the same time, Nynaeve said in a shaky voice, "To call the heroes of the ages back from the dead to fight the Dark One." "Burn me," Mat breathed. Loial reverently laid the horn back in its golden nest. "I begin to wonder," Moiraine said. "The eye of the world was made against the greatest need the world would ever face, but what it made for the use to which Gully, Gully, put it, or to guard these things. Quickly the last, show it to me." After the first two, Rand could understand Perrin's reluctance. Lan and the Ogier took the bundle of white cloth from him when he hesitated and unfolded it between them. A long, white banner spread out, lifting on the air. Rand could only stare. The whole thing seemed of a piece, neither woven, nor dyed, nor painted. A figure like a serpent, scaled in scarlet and gold, ran the entire length, but it had scaled legs and feet with 5 long golden claws on each, and a great head with a golden mane and eyes like the sun. The stirring of the banner made it seem to move, scales glittering like precious metals and gems, alive, and he almost thought he could hear it roar defiance. "What is it?" he said. Moiraine answered slowly, "The banner of the Lord of the Morning, when he led the forces of light against the shadow. The banner of Luz Therin Telamon, the banner of the dragon." Loial almost dropped his end. "Burn me," Mat said faintly. "We will take these things with us when we go," Moiraine said. "They were not put here by chance, and I must know more." Her fingers brushed her pouch, where the pieces of the shattered seal were. "It is too late in the day for starting now. We will rest and eat, but we will leave early. The blight is all around here, not as along the border, and strong. Without the Green Man, this place cannot hold long. Let me down," she told Nynaeve and Egwene. "I must rest." Rand became aware of what he had been seeing all along, but not noticing. Dead, brown leaves falling from the great oak. Dead leaves rustling thick on the ground in the breeze, brown mixed with petals dropped from thousands of flowers. The Green Man had held back the blight, but already the blight was killing what he had made. "It is done, isn't it?" he asked Moiraine. "It is finished." The Aes Sedai turned her head on its pillow of cloaks. Her eyes seemed as deep as the eye of the world. "We have done what we came here to do. From here you may live your life as the pattern weaves. Eat, then sleep, Ramdal Thor. Sleep and dream of home." Dawn revealed devastation in the Green Man's garden. The ground was thick with fallen leaves, almost knee-deep in places. All the flowers were gone except a few clinging desperately to the edge of the clearing. Little could grow in the soil under an oak, but a thin circle of flowers and grass centered on the thick trunk above the Green Man's grave. The oak itself retained only half its leaves, and that was far more than any other tree had, as if some remnant of the Green Man still fought to hold there. The cool breezes had died, replaced by a growing, sticky heat. The butterflies were gone, the birds silent. It was a silent group who prepared to leave. Rand climbed into the bay's saddle with a sense of loss. It shouldn't be this way. Blood and ashes, we won. "I wish he had found his other place," Egwene said as she mounted Baela. A litter, fashioned by Lan, was slung between the shaggy mare and Oldib. To carry Moiraine, Nynaeve would ride beside with the white mare's reins. The wisdom dropped her eyes whenever she saw Lan glance at her, avoiding his gaze. The warder looked at her whenever her eyes were averted, but he would not speak to her. No one had to ask who Egwene meant. "It is not right," Loial said, staring at the oak. The Ogier was the only one still not mounted. "It is not right that Tree Brother should fall to the blight." He handed the reins of his big horse to Rand. "Not right." Lan opened his mouth as the Ogier walked to the great oak. Moiraine, lying on the litter, weakly raised her hand, and the warder said nothing. Before the oak, Loial knelt, closing his eyes and stretching out his arms. The tufts on his ears stood straight as he lifted his face to the sky. And he sang. Rand could not say if there were words or if it was pure song. In that rumbling voice it was as if the earth sang, yet he was sure he heard the birds trilling again, and spring breezes sighing softly, and the sound of butterfly wings. Lost in the song, he thought it lasted only minutes, but when Loyal lowered his arms and opened his eyes, he was surprised to see the sun stood well above the horizon. It had been touching the trees when the Ogier began. The leaves still on the oak seemed greener and more firmly attached than before. The flowers encircling it stood straighter, the morning stars white and fresh, the lovers' knots a strong crimson. Mopping sweat from his broad face, Loyal rose and took his reins from Rand. His long eyebrows drooped, abashed as if they might think he had been showing off. "I'd never sung so hard before. I could not have done it if something of Tree Brother was not still there. My tree songs do not have his power." When he settled himself in his saddle, there was satisfaction in the look he gave the oak and the flowers. "This little space, at least, will not sink into the blight. The blight will not have Tree Brother." "You are a good man, Ogier," Lan said. Loyal grinned. I will take that as a compliment, but I do not know what Elder Haman would say." They rode in a single file, with Mat behind the warder where he could use his bow to effect if needed, and Perrin bringing up the rear with his axe across the pommel of his saddle. They crested a hill, and in an eye blink the blight was all around them, twisted and rotted in virulent rainbow hues. Rand looked over his shoulder, but the Green Man's garden was nowhere to be seen. Only the blight stretching behind them as before. Yet he thought, just for a moment, that he saw the towering top of the oak tree, green and lush, before it shimmered and was gone. Then there was only the blight. He half expected they would have to fight their way out as they fought their way in, but the blight was as quiet and still as death. Not a single branch trembled as if to lash at them, nothing screamed or howled, neither nearby nor in the distance. The blight seemed to crouch, not to pounce, but as if it had been struck a great blow and waited for the next to fall. Even the sun was less red. When they passed the necklace of lakes, the sun hung not far past its zenith. Lan kept them well away from the lakes, and did not even look at them, but Rand thought the seven towers seemed taller than when he first saw them. He was sure the jagged tops were further from the ground, and above them something almost seen, seamless towers gleaming in the sun, and banners with golden cranes flying on the wind. He blinked and stared, but the towers refused to vanish completely. They were there at the edge of vision until the blight hid the lakes once more. Before sunset, the warder chose a campsite, and Moiraine had Nynaeve and Egwene help her up to set wards. The Aes Sedai whispered in the other women's ears before she began. Nynaeve hesitated, but when Moiraine closed her eyes, all three women did so together. Rand saw Mat and Perrin staring, and wondered how they could be surprised. Every woman is an Aes Sedai, he thought mirthlessly. The light held me, so am I. Bleakness held his tongue. "Why is it so different?" Perrin asked as Egwene and the Wisdom helped Moiraine to her bed. "It feels gully. His thick shoulders shrugged, as if he could not find the word. "We struck a mighty blow at the Dark One," Moiraine replied, settling herself with a sigh. "The shadow will be a long time recovering." "How?" Mat demanded. "What did we do?" "Sleep," Moiraine said. "We are not out of the blight yet." But the next morning, still nothing changed that Rand could see. The blight faded as they rode south, of course. Twisted trees were replaced by straight. The stifling heat diminished. Rotting foliage gave way to the merely diseased. And then, not diseased, he realized. The forest around them became red with new growth, thick on the branches. Buds sprouted on the undergrowth, creepers covered the rocks with green, and new wildflowers dotted the grass as thick and bright as where the Green Man walked. It was as if spring, so long held back by winter, now raced to catch up to where it should be. He was not the only one who stared. "A mighty blow," Moiraine murmured, and would say no more. Climbing wildrose entwined the stone column marking the border. Men came out of the watchtowers to greet them. There was a stunned quality to their laughter, and their eyes shone with amaze, as if they could not believe the new grass under their steel-clad feet. "The light has conquered the shadow, a great victory in Tarwin's Gap. We have had the message. Victory. The light blesses us again. King Eza is strong in the light," Lan replied to all their shouts. The watchman wanted to tend Moiraine, or at least send an escort with them, but she refused it all. Even flat on her back on a litter, the Aes Sedai's presence was such that the armored men fell back, bowing and acceding to her wishes. Their laughter followed as Rand and the others rode on. In the late afternoon they reached Valere to find the grim-walled city ringing with celebration. Ringing in truth. Rand doubted if there could be a bell in the city not clanging, from the tiniest silver-harnessed chime to great bronze gongs in their tower tops. The gates stood wide open, and men ran laughing and singing in the streets, flowers stuck in their topknots and the crevices of their armor. The common people of the town had not yet returned from Valere, but the soldiers were newly come from Tarwin's Gap, and their joy was enough to fill the streets. Victory in the Gap. We won. A miracle in the Gap. The age of legends has come back. Spring! A grizzled old soldier laughed as he hung a garland of morning stars around Rand's neck. His own topknot was a white cluster of them. The light blesses us with spring once more. Learning, they wanted to go to the keep. A circle of men clad in steel and flowers surrounded them, running to clear a way through the celebration. Ingtar's was the first face Rand saw that was not smiling. I was too late, Ingtar told Lan with a sour grimness. Too late by an hour to see. Peace. His teeth ground audibly, but then his expression became contrite. Forgive me. Grief makes me forget my duties. Welcome, Builder. Welcome to you all. It is good to see you safely out of the blight. I will bring the healer to Moiraine Sedai in her chambers and inform Lord Agelmar. Take me to Lord Agelmar, Moiraine commanded. Take us all. Ingtar opened his mouth to protest and bowed under the force of her eyes. Agelmar was in his study with his swords and armor back on their racks, and his was the second face that did not smile. He wore a troubled frown that deepened when he saw Moiraine carried in on her litter by liveried servants. Women in the black and gold fluttered over, bringing the Aes Sedai to him without a chance to freshen herself or be brought to the healer. Loyal carried the gold chest. The pieces of the seal were still in Moraine's pouch. Luz Therin Kinslayer's banner was wrapped in her blanket roll and still tied behind Old Deeb's saddle. The groom who had led the white mare away had received the strictest orders to see the blanket roll was placed untouched in the chambers assigned to the Aes Sedai. Peace, the Lord of Valere muttered. Are you injured, Moiraine Sedai? Ingtar, why have you not seen the Aes Sedai to her bed and brought the healer to her? Be still, Lord Agelmar, Moiraine said. Ingtar has done as I commanded him. I am not so frail as everyone here seems to think. She motioned two of the women to help her to a chair. For a moment they clasped their hands, exclaiming that she was too weak, that she should be in a warm bed and the healer brought, and a hot bath. Moraine's eyebrows lifted. The women shut their mouths abruptly and hurried to aid her into the chair. As soon as she was settled, she waved them away irritably. I would speak with you, Lord Agelmar. Agelmar nodded, and Ingtar waved the servants from the room. The Lord of Valere eyed those who remained expectantly, especially, Rand thought, Loyal and the golden chest. We hear, Moiraine said as soon as the door shut behind Ingtar, that you won a great victory in Tarwin's Gap. Yes, Agelmar said slowly, his troubled frown returning. Yes, Aes Sedai, and no. The half-men and their trollocs were destroyed to the last, but we barely fought. A miracle, my men call it. The earth swallowed them, the mountains buried them. Only a few Dradkar were left, too frightened to do else but fly north as fast as they could. A miracle indeed, Moiraine said. And spring has come again. A miracle, Agelmar said, shaking his head. But, Gully, Moiraine Sedai, men say many things about what happened in the Gap. That the light took on flesh and fought for us. That the Creator walked in the Gap to strike at the shadow. But I saw a man, Moiraine Sedai. I saw a man, and what he did cannot be, must not be. The wheel weaves as the wheel wheels, Lord of Valere. As you say, Moiraine Sedai. And Padan Thane, he is secure. I must speak with him when I am rested. He is held as you commanded, Aes Sedai, whining at his guards half the time and trying to command them the rest. But, Gully, peace, Moiraine Sedai, what of you in the blight? You found the green man? I see his hand in the new things growing. We found him, she said flatly. The green man is dead, Lord Agelmar, and the eye of the world is gone. There will be no more quests by young men seeking glory." The Lord of Valere frowned, shaking his head in confusion. "Dead? The Green Man? He cannot be. Gully, Gully, Gully. Then you were defeated? But the flowers, and the growing things." "We won, Lord Agelmar. We won, and the land freed from winter is the proof, but I fear the last battle has not yet been fought." Rand stirred, but the Aes Sedai gave him a sharp look, and he stood still again. "The blight still stands, and the forges of Takandar still work below Sheol Ghul. There are many halfmen yet, and countless Trollocs. Never think the need for watchfulness in the Borderlands is gone." "I do not think it so, Aes Sedai," he said stiffly. Moiraine motioned for Loyal to set the gold chest at her feet, and when he did, she opened it, revealing the horn. "The Horn of Valere," she said, and Agelmar gasped. Rand almost thought the man would kneel. With that, Moiraine Sedai, it matters not how many half-men or Trollocs remain. With the heroes of old come back from the tomb, we will march to the blasted lands and level Sheol Ghul. "No!" Agelmar's mouth fell open in surprise, but Moiraine continued calmly. "I did not show it to you to taunt you, but so that you will know that in whatever battles yet come, our might will be as great as that of the Shadow. Its place is not here. The horn must be carried to Ilion. It is there, if fresh battles threaten, that it must rally the forces of the light. I will ask an escort of your best men to see that it reaches Ilion safely. There are dark friends still, as well as halfmen and Trollocs, and those who come to the horn will follow whoever winds it. It must reach Ilion. It shall be as you say, Aes Sedai." But when the lid of the chest closed, the Lord of Valere looked like a man being denied his last glimpse of the light. 7 days later, bells still rang in Valere. The people had returned from Fal Moran, adding their celebration to that of the soldiers, and shouts and singing blended with the pealing of the bells on the long balcony where Rand stood. The balcony overlooked Agelmar's private gardens, green and flowering, but he did not give them a second look. Despite the sun high in the sky, spring in Shi'Nar was cooler than he was used to, yet sweat glistened on his bare chest and shoulders as he swung the heron-marked blade, each move precise yet distant from where he floated in the void. Even there he wondered how much joy there would be in the town if they knew of the banner Moiraine still kept hidden. Good sheepherder. Leaning against the railing with his arms folded across his chest, the warder watched him critically. "You're doing well, but don't push so hard. You can't become a blade master in a few weeks." The void vanished like a pricked bubble. "I don't care about being a blade master. It's a blade master's blade, sheepherder. I just want my father to be proud of me." His hand tightened on the rough leather of the hilt. "I just want Tam to be my father." He slammed the sword into its scabbard. "Anyway, I don't have a few weeks." "Then you've not changed your mind, would you?" Land's expression had not altered. The flat planes of his face looked as if they could not change. "You won't try to stop me, or Moiraine Sedai. You can do as you will, sheepherder, or as the pattern weaves for you." The warder straightened. "I'll leave you now." Rand turned to watch Lan go and found Egwene standing there. "Changed your mind about what, Rand?" He snatched up his shirt and coat, suddenly feeling the cool. "I'm going away, Egwene." "Where?" "Somewhere." "I don't know." He did not want to meet her eyes, but he could not stop looking at her. She wore fed wild roses twined in her hair, flowing about her shoulders. She held her cloak close, dark blue and embroidered along the edge, with a thin line of white flowers in the Shi'Naran fashion, and the blossoms made a line straight up to her face. They were no paler than her cheeks. Her eyes seemed so large and dark. Away. "I'm sure Moiraine Sedai will not like you just going off after Gully. After what you've done, you deserve some reward. Moiraine does not know I am alive. I have done what she wanted, and that's an end to it. She doesn't even speak to me when I go to her. Not that I've tried to stay close to her, but she's avoided me. She won't care if I go, and I don't care if she does. Moiraine is still not completely well, Rand." She hesitated. "I have to go to Tar Valon for my training. Nynaeve is coming too. And Mat still needs to be healed of whatever binds him to that dagger, and Perrin wants to see Tar Valon before he goes. Gully, wherever. You could come with us, and wait for some Aes Sedai besides Moiraine to find out what I am and gentle me." His voice was rough, almost a sneer. He could not change it. Is that what you want? No. He knew he would never be able to tell her how grateful he was that she had not hesitated before answering. Rand, you aren't afraid. Gully. They were alone, but she looked around and still lowered her voice. Moiraine Sedai says you don't have to touch the true source. If you don't touch Sedin, if you don't try to wield the power, you'll be safe. Oh, I won't ever touch it again. Not if I have to cut my hand off first. What if I can't stop? I never tried to wield it, not even at the eye. What if I can't stop? Will you go home, Rand? Your father must be dying to see you. Even Mat's father must be dying to see him by now. I'll be coming back to Eamon's Field next year. For a little while at least. He rubbed his palm over the hilt of his sword, feeling the bronze heron. My father. Home. Light. How I want to see. Gully. Not home. Some place where there aren't any people to hurt if I can't stop myself. Somewhere alone. Suddenly it felt as cold as snow on the balcony. I'm going away, but not home. Egwene, why did you have to be one of those? Gully. Go. He put his arms around her and whispered into her hair. Not ever home. In Agelmar's private garden, under a thick bower dotted with white blossoms, Moiraine shifted on her bedchair. The fragments of the seal lay on her lap, and the small gem she sometimes wore in her hair spun and glittered on its gold chain from the ends of her fingers. The faint blue glow faded from the stone, and a smile touched her lips. It had no power in itself, the stone, but the first use she'd ever learned of the one power, as a girl in the royal palace in Caerhien, was using the stone to listen to people when they thought they were too far off to be overheard. The prophecies will be fulfilled, the Aes Sedai whispered. The dragon is reborn.